Hello, welcome back to this course on usually understanding hotel financial statements. So far, we have discussed the basic definitions of room revenue, room expenses, occupancy statistics, how do we calculate the occupancy percentages. In this video, we are going to discuss about the rooms department operating matrices. How do we these matrices will help us to understand the rooms profitability in much deeper sense, and we will be able to dissect the reasons why we are not able to meet the budget, why we are below last year or higher than last year, and where we need to focus on in order to maximize our business and profitability. So let's dive in there. Now you will be able to see on the screen that the first normally statistics that we are going metrics that we are going to be look at is the room revenue mix as a percentage. So here you will be calculating the occupancy and the ADR and also the revenue, all the three things by market segment. So market segment, as we have explained earlier already, transient means the FITs, which are retail, discount, negotiated, qualified, and wholesale. You may have sub segments into retail. You may want to discuss, you may want to have a separate for the walk-ins, you may have for bar rate, you may have for OTAs, you may have for the um, normal any other segmentation that you may want to do. For discount, you may have again for the promotions, the packages, the OTA with the discounts, or whatever. However, you want to segregate the business to understand them better. Negotiated, you may have for corporate A, corporate B, corporate C. Qualified, you may have for staff, for government, for whatever. Wholesale, you may have negotiated, and wholesale non-negotiated means the travel agent is selling it with the commission uh, for the marketing agencies. Then you have the groups also, again the corporate, maybe with rooms, without rooms, associations, maybe by the type of association, government, and other. So what the idea here is really to understand the market revenue mix by each segment, market segment, or by sub segment. Usually for top managerial levels, we don't do market sub-segment. Is segmentation is enough. But for the financial controllers, for the revenue managers, for the director of system marketing, they need to understand the really the sub-segment as well, so that they can explain why the retail business is, let's say, there is a variance from the budget, variance from the previous year, for the month, and for the year to date. Here you see the columns are for the uh, actual with the variance to budget and variance to the prior year in terms of percentages, and also the year to date. You may have you may have actual budget last year and then the variances, or you may have actual budget variance to budget, actual last year variance to last year. The difference can be anything. The format can be much more elaborate, depending on how easy you find it to read and to digest the information. So there will, as I said, there will be three separate statistics here. One for revenue mix in terms of dollars. You can have in terms of percentages to the dollars, can have in terms of daily ADRs, or you can have in terms of the occupancy statistics for each subsegment. And here again, you will be looking at the contract room revenue, the other room revenue, and the allowances. Other room revenue, there is no occupant daily average daily rate, because that's not required there, but it's there for the revenue mix. But you will have it allowances. The allowances, as we learned earlier, was the for only for service recovery, discounts given for service recovery. Then you have room inventory. Here for the room inventory, you may want to split the total room inventory, how many are closed, and what are the available for sale, and what is then out of board, what is total available for sale. You may want to split how much is sold for transient, how much sold for group, how much is sold for contract, total room, and also the complementary. So then you will be also then the occupied rooms, in vacant rooms. In vacant rooms also you can split between how many are how many are the out of order, how many are closed, out of discretionary, and the other way. Then you have number of guests by the groups, the transient, the group, the contract, the complementary, and the total guest. And then the per available room. Then the other statistics that you may want to dissect into the room revenue is again the per room statistics, per occupied room statistics. So per occupied room statistics is usually the other cost, which is the other revenue cost. The labor cost usually is by available room because it's very fixed. It's a kind of fixed nature, but you can have the per per room statistic into two part. One is per available room, one is per occupied room. Per available room, so that you can understand the nature of fixed expenses, which is usually the labor cost and its related cost, and for other expenses in group, and the total departmental profit per available room. Same statistics you can get per occupied room, again labor per occupied room, and then the other expenses, cleaning, cluster, communication, as we have discussed earlier. The labor here you can split by the nature of the lines, maybe salary, wages, total, contract labor, bonus, and other things, if you want to know in details. But those will not make much sense because you don't have to specify, you don't have to really explain that in much details. This per occupied room statistics is largely useful for understanding the variable expenses, where the expense is not really fixed. Which are those expenses? So let's look at that. So those expenses which are more on labor variable are usually cleaning supplies. Then you have commissions, which are again based on the occupied room. Then you have the decorations, which are flexible or based on the room occupied. Then you have the guest relocation based on occupancies, guest supplies, guest transportation based on room occupancies, linens. It is based on room occupancies actually, but usually because the changing schedule does not match with the occupancy schedule, so usually you can consider them as a fixed expense or as a non relatable to either fixed or not variable expenses. Then you have operating supplies, which are again kind of variable. Then you have reservations expenses, which are based on occupancy, based on occupancy. uh, the rest of the costs are not really variable, so but you may still have be able to understand the nature of those expenses based on the uh, business level, because if you compare them by the occupied room nights, you will be able to understand, are we spending too much based on the business level, or we, we could control the expenses. um, Now let's look at a couple of formulas which we have discussed earlier but we have not really explained. The average daily rate, how we are going to calculate is by room revenue divided by the rooms sold. Here is room sold, not the total room occupied. Only the paid room sold, which is the transient, the group, and the contract, and the total room revenue. Now, the total room revenue includes other room revenue as well. Now you have ADR by per revenue segment. So ADR for that revenue segment, that particular gross room revenue for the revenue segment divide by the room sold to that particular revenue segment. So the first ADR is for the entire hotel, includes minus the allowances plus, and adding the other expense, other room revenue. But ADR per revenue segment is only the revenue for that particular segment without deducting the allowances and also without adding the other room revenue. So here you will be getting only the gross. You can compare with the other hotel, or you can compare this room ADR with the rate for that particular segment, average rate for bar, average rate for the contract, average rate for wholesale, so that you can compare really, are we able to achieve rates that we have given in the market. Sometimes you may give discount. The corporate people may give discount. The travel agent may give discount. The groups you have estimated to get $80, but now you are getting only 60 because you may have given too many discounts. So it will help the hotel to understand the negotiation power of the sales and also the market's ability to get to possess the rates. If your achieved ADR for the revenue segment is consistently lower than the benchmark rates which you want to establish for the particular market segment, then you may need to look at the rate charts so that you don't have to really get into the discounting of rates. So you may want to bring down the rate. The other way normally does not happen. It does not normally is higher because you're not selling higher than your standard rates. But if it does higher, then it means also give an opportunity to say, hey, we can actually achieve the higher rate as well. Revenue per available room is also a very important metric because occupancy only or rooms or ADR only will not be really helpful because can increase the ADR but at the expense of occupancy, or you can increase the occupancy at the expense of ADR. But what drives the real profitability is the RevPAR, room revenue per available room. So that is calculated by total room revenue divided by the rooms available, not the total room inventory, rooms available. Then you have total operating revenue for the entire hotel, including F&B, other operating departments, divided by the rooms available. So that gives us total RevPAR. This total RevPAR is easily compared between the different properties so that they can understand what are their how they are they maximizing their other departments revenue as. So this was all